You're now tuned in and listening to the Pleighties podcast.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Pleighties podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Dolbin. After a brief little hiatus we had there, coming back strong, want to finish out 2019 with some sort of reflection, review, and sort of planning heading forwards into 2020. I don't know about you, but a very valuable year 2019 was. Learned some awesome stuff, and it's also why I want to have the topic of today's podcast being self-improvement, growth, and more importantly learning, and even a little bit more than that, learning via books and reading. It was one thing that going back a couple years, 2016 I believe, as I was finishing out 2016 going into 2017, I never really was one for goals or New Year's resolutions. I kind of thought that was just a gimmicky thing, but I actually really wanted to set some goals out there. So I'm just going to go over the general list, and then I'll delve into the one that I want to talk about today. Some of the goals were to go outside, hike, travel, explore more, downsize, minimalize, get rid of that clutter, both physical and mental, create more videos, podcasts, crafts, all that fun stuff, especially with the advent of social media, videos, content, whatever you want to do. Turn off notifications. Don't get, essentially what I had in mind there was distractions, and notifications can be in the form of a distraction. Continue to daily log, which is another one I'll delve into a little deeper on another podcast. Essentially a journal, but we'll go into that in another one. And then more importantly, this is a goal I wanted to talk about today, is read 6 books. And then the final one, which again is always a good one to have, resolution. Any time of the year, you don't need to make it, but sometimes just writing it down makes you more cognizant of it, is spend more time with family and friends. But getting back to that, read 6 books. As I was ending 2016, heading into 2017, I wasn't happy with myself, and I wasn't reading as much as I'd like to. I took some time off, intentionally, unintentionally. So a way to hold myself accountable, I made that resolution of 6 books. And why 6? I wanted something to be, the SMART goals, and something that I could actually do and accomplish, versus, most people, I feel like, and I find myself included in this, is there's times where you start to make a goal and it's not realistic, measurable, actionable, and all those ways, and then you beat yourself up and you have that negative self-talk, and I'll never do it, and get down on yourself, if you will. So I wanted to find a way to actually do a goal that I could actually hold myself accountable to, and the other breakdown of that is 12 months. I figured I'd give myself 2 months to read a book. That way I can still have plenty of other time to do other projects, whatever it may be, creative projects, and all the other goals on my list, as well as having, some self-time, self-reflection, free time to do whatever, spend time with family and friends. But again, I thought that number 6 was good because, 6 books, each book would have the rough ballpark of 2 months to read, maybe less. And then even if I take a month off or so, whether it be intentionally or unintentionally, again, a very attainable goal. So, just to recap, that was 2016, heading into 2017. 2017, I'll be honest, I have it on this little piece of paper here, and maybe I'll show a recap of it later. Is 2017, I didn't meet that goal. I'll be honest with myself, I didn't hold myself accountable. I did get two books down that year, War of Art and Propaganda by Edward Bernays. But again, I didn't beat myself up. I didn't hold myself accountable enough, disciplined enough. But as I, went through 2017 and got to the end, I came back across this list, and I said, going into 2018, I thought they were all very sustainable goals that I could hit again, and I wanted to hold myself accountable and disciplined to those goals. So last year, 2018, I did achieve that goal. I got 6 books in, and those 6 books were 22 Laws of Marketing, Infinite versus Finite Games, or Infinite and Finite Games, Tribe, On Homecoming and Belonging by Sebastian Junger, Unplugged. I forget the author of that one, but I can send some links and stuff in the description of this podcast. Crystallizing Public Opinion, going back off of the propaganda book by Edward Bernays. And then finally, it was Getting Everything Out of All You've Got by Jay Abraham. So last year, I was happy and excited with myself. I reached that goal specifically into that reading 6 books. Again, and there was no books along the way heading into 2018. What I like to do and find is if I'm listening to a podcast, watching a video, listening to something, and if something in that podcast, that video, whether it be with the author or another person of interest, whether it be a businessman, entrepreneur, whatever it may be, if there's something that seems to speak to me, I'll add it to a wish list. If it really speaks to me, I'll just buy it sight unseen. I'll just go to Amazon, put it on the list, download it or buy it right away. I said download, but I want to get back to that. I don't like downloading books. I just haven't found it. I like that tactile feel, and as you'll see in some of these, I'll show you, I take notes and highlight stuff in the margin. So it takes some time in doing that, but I really feel like that helps me consume and make mental notes going back if I want to jump back into a book, specifically if there's a topic, a theme, a strategy, an insight, whether it be something relatable or something I know that might be of value to me in the future. I'll highlight that. I'll take notes in the margin. And like I said, it might take me longer to read a book, consuming a book that way. But again, I like that because, again, it gives me that tactile, I have that book in my hand. I can read through it, back through it. I never used to be a fan of earmarking it to doggy ears up on the corners. But again, to me, it really added value, and, it makes it fun going back. And like I said, if there's anything I wanted to go back and read, it makes it easier for me to find with little notes in the margin and highlighted text, whether it be a quote or a block of text, a paragraph. So 2018, I hit that goal. I held myself accountable. I was disciplined. I got the 6 books in. And then heading into 2019 this year, I was excited. I took the baton of 2018. Since I wasn't accountable to myself in 2017, I only got 2 of 6. Last year I hit all 6. This year I got to 6. I should have taken a note of when I got to 6 books completed. I want to say it was around June, July, August, maybe even September. And since then I've added 3 additional books, so I'm up to 9 completed, and I'm on my 10th. It is a thicker book. What I'm working on right now is Principles by Ray Dalio. It's a great book. And if there's any theme I've noticed this year, there was a lot of startups, entrepreneurial business, modern business, mindset was another big one with Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, Win Without Pitching Manifesto by Blair Enns, Paid Attention by Ferris Jacob, I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi, 0 to 1, Peter Thiel, The Lean Startup, Eric Ries, The 4-Hour Workweek, Tim Ferriss, $1 Trillion Coach, and again, I had to finish up some chapters from last year's 2018 list was Getting Everything You Can Out of All You Got, and one additional one, How the River Cats Won, Lessons on Relationships and Competition by my former high school baseball coach, Kyle Wagner, which I had a podcast I'll link below too, if you missed that podcast. So again, a lot of the themes within all those are just, life, relationship, coaching, business, startups, kind of like the themes. And it was just a kick I was on this year. There was no real rhyme or reason. It was just kind of the theme I was on, sort of that mindset, self-improvement, going into it, not only for my professional life, work that I was doing, but I also have always had that inkling. I always loved that. And more importantly, I guess what it is I've found sometimes we try and reinvent the wheel in life, whether it be creative ventures, business ventures, entrepreneurial. But when it comes down to it, if you can find somebody who's done what you want to do, and reverse engineer or read the thought process and mindset that they had going into it, you can learn a lot of valuable insights into it. Instead of going into a venture blind, whether it be creative, relationship, business, find some inspiration, insights, find the best to do it. That's why one of the reasons $1 Trillion Coach stood out to me. I listened to an interesting podcast from Tim Ferriss with the author, and it really spoke to me and something I needed to read at the time this past year. I also, thanks to a friend, Nick, was gifted the 4-Hour Work Week, which again, working remotely these past 2 years, have really spoke to me to see how you can really work remotely, and that's where kind of the business world is trending with platforms like Slack and other stuff. You're not dictated by an office, a 9-to-5 location. As long as you can get your work done and be disciplined and accountable to yourself and others, you can escape the 9-to-5 and that physical location. So 4-Hour Work Week was awesome on that vibe. The Lean Startup, I was heard or recommended to that by the co-founder of Instagram. That was a really good one. I loved that. 0 to 1, Peter Thiel, former business partner with Elon Musk at PayPal. That was a really interesting one for startups and entrepreneurs. I highly recommend that one if you have not read that one. And then after that, I came across another one, thanks to Tim Ferriss, I Will Teach You to Be Rich, Ramit Sethi, and that was more financial. It was one of the things that I had to do this year. Well, I didn't have to, but I wanted to. I had 2 401ks from a previous employer, just kind of sitting there doing their thing, but I wanted to be more knowledgeable and actionable in those investments. So talk about just, perfect timing, synchronicity. I came across that on a podcast going down on vacation. I listened to Ramit and Tim Ferriss talk. What Ramit was saying really resonated with me and where I was at and what I wanted to accomplish. So I picked up a copy, fairly cheap, and man, I can't recommend it enough. Especially growing up, I knew enough about finance, but still to this day, even after reading that, I still want to dive in. And fortunately, that's where the current book that I'm reading, Principles by Ray Dalio, comes in. But if you find yourself interested in investing, automating your finances, getting rid of your debt, all the above that helps you put into a financially good place, 401ks, Roth IRAs, all that fun stuff, work smarter, not harder type deal, I definitely recommend picking up Ramit's book, I Will Teach You to Be Rich. The return on investment there is well worth it. The price of the book, if you just take his actionable steps. And I believe even in the book, he says even on the cover, no guilt, no excuses, no BS, just a 6-week program that works. And I can definitely attest to that. But it's one of those things that it's an ongoing process. But once you stick to those principles and what he speaks about in that book, man, it's some powerful stuff. Again, you'll definitely get the return on your investment by just reading that book and setting yourself up for future financial success. And it's not crazy stuff. It's not like you're out there reading into a magic crystal ball, shaking it up, trying to find the answers. What's the new hot stock to chase? You can definitely do that if that's part of your investment strategies, but it's more practical, realistic advice, tips, tactics, and strategies to really take it to the next level. The other one, I had the pleasure of meeting Ferriss, but never really getting to sit down and talk to him at my sister's wedding. Shout out Monique. Ferriss and his wife, Rosie, were there. I didn't know to the extent that Ferriss was involved in the marketing advertising world, which I've been, in the last 2 years. I read that book, and man, Ferriss knocked it out of the park with the current climate of digital media, marketing, advertising, and I highly recommend that if that's the world you live in, or if you're just fascinated and interested into that world. I definitely recommend paid attention. And then the other one I wanted to give a shout out to my buddy Molds, Ryan, Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. That was one book that he was recommended by his dad, and he he knew, and we'd have these talks quite regularly on a Sunday. We'd do a little FaceTime on Instagram, since I have an Android device and he has Apple, and a notorious back and forth between my friends and I, who I'm kind of that odd man out whenever I'm the only one with Android, Galaxy Note 8, and then everybody else has iPhones, so I can't partake in FaceTimes. But during one of our Instagram video chats, and just talking where I was at and my mindset at the time, and just want to always approve. Thankfully, Ryan was like, "Yeah, Tyler, I got a good book for you," and he actually bought it for me and sent it to me. And man, talk about another powerful book, because regardless of what you want to do professionally, or even just personally with your relationships with your parents, coworkers, significant other, whoever it may be, friends, mindset is definitely one of those. One of the things that's always been fascinated to me, and that I've learned throughout the years, that I've always thought and saw stuff a little bit different, but also need to just constantly refresh my own perspective and mindset, because just like anything, you need to constantly flex that muscle, the mindset, the perspective that we have, because sometimes you can get off kilter, and it's a good way to recalibrate. But Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill was definitely a powerful read for me. And there's actually a couple things in there that I've implemented on an almost daily basis. There's sometimes I forget to read it on the weekends. I don't always have it with me when traveling, but something I should do, make an effort to do it every day. But most of the time, Monday through Friday, before I begin work, there's some, kind of daily mantras that I'll read to, again, help sort of with that long game mindset, the perspective of the North Star, to remind myself I might not get to where I want to go daily, sort of those micro goals, but the macro North Star is always there to guide me. So thanks again to Ryan for the recommendation of Think and Grow Rich. And then the Win Without Pitching Manifesto, I've had that for a little bit now. But as a creator, a creative type of guy, video production, podcasting, all those creative services, I really was glad I read that book. It was very interesting. Again, talk about another one with the mindset and perspective. Totally valuable to anybody in the creative field. Whatever it may be, I definitely recommend the Win Without Pitching Manifesto. So much value in that. So, I just wanted to share with you guys sort of my perspective and one of the goals as we recap and close out 2019. Again, I hope maybe this could inspire you. If it didn't, so be it. I hope maybe you heard a book. I'll list all of them in the description of this podcast. But again, I just want to, heading in, finishing out 2019, heading into 2020, I hope I can inspire you with some little form or fashion. Maybe it's not reading. I know tactile reading isn't for everybody. Maybe it's audiobooks with the advent of Audible and other streaming services. Maybe it's podcasts. Maybe you find a new podcast that really inspires you, motivates you, for whatever it may be. For me, it's more business mindset, startups, creative type stuff. But whatever it may be for you, just go out there, find some stuff, talk to other people that are in your field or of interest, ask for recommendations, books, podcasts, video, YouTube series, whatever it may be. Find something. And more importantly, hold yourself accountable. Again, maybe it's 6 books. Maybe you write that down, give yourself a very smart goal, or smart actionable goal to begin with. Or maybe it's, listen to a podcast a week, watch 10 hours of YouTube videos on your given thing. But whatever it is, just help hold yourself accountable and discipline to your goals to better yourself, learn more about whatever it may be. So that's kind of what the goal of this podcast was, to share something of what I've done the past couple years, and then ways that I've held myself accountable. And I actually just keep this note, this sheet of paper with those books, because again, it's a better way to hold myself accountable. So as I go into January, February, if I haven't got a book, fully read, it's a way to kind of fire up that. And sometimes as I'm getting on a roll, if I got a late start in January, February, it's a way to pick back up and March, April, May, June, especially the summer months, maybe you're at the beach doing some travel, vacation, you got some leisure time. It's a way to maybe make up for some books or get ahead. And then that way, if you get a little behind, life happens, you're able to meet those goals, whatever it may be, podcasts, audiobooks, reading, whatever it may be. So I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. Let me know if you are reading anything, what's inspired you, especially if it's on the business startup mindset, sort of category, themes, creative. I definitely want to hear it. I'll list these books there. Hopefully you can find some inspiration from this, and again, if there's any podcasts or anything else, please share them with me. Because again, I love always checking out new podcasts, new books, new YouTube series on the topic. So thanks again for tuning in, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks again for listening to this episode of the Pleighties podcast. As always, if you enjoyed listening to the podcast, please like, comment, review, and subscribe to stay up to date on the latest episodes as they become available. You can listen to the Pleighties podcast on Anchor, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Breaker, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, and Overcast. If you found this podcast interesting, feel free to leave us a review, share it with your friends, family, and colleagues. If you have any thoughts on today's episode or future topics you'd like me to discuss, email me at tyler@pleighties.com. Thanks again, everyone, for listening. We'll see you on the next episode of the Pleighties podcast.